Welcome to the Gloves Are Off Overtime. I'm Moses Woldu, and I'm pleased to be joined by these two fine people. Of course, Nahreman Issa here with Newcap.
Are you fully pleased, or is that sarcasm?
I think that's just part of the routine of what I say.
Okay, yeah.
How are you?
I'm a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you, and I'm actually, that is sincere, despite what my tone of voice might sound like. Hey, also another great guy to have on the show. Of course, we've met Lakeland College men's volleyball team head coach Taylor Dyer. How you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful, thanks.
And the good news is I didn't mistake you for your brother, which apparently happens a lot.
Yep, it sure does.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's get to the Toronto Raptors. No mistakes here. They didn't look good in Game 1, losing to the Brooklyn Nets. However, the real headline came out prior to. Now, Red Square out in Toronto, just outside ACC, was big during the Leafs. They wanted to make it bigger with the Raptors, their first playoff game in 6 years, at home, ruckus crowd. And the GM of the Raptors, Masai Ujiri, really tried to embody that, saying, you know what, we are here. We're not going to be rollovers. I know that the Brooklyn Nets wanted to play us in the first round and not the Chicago Bulls by tanking their final couple games. But we're going to say, you know what, F Brooklyn. This is what we're going to do. Do you feel, he got a $25,000 fine. Do you feel that, was it appropriate, what happened to Masai Ujiri?
I think
that was the right call?
I think the fine is appropriate. Just a bad choice of words by him. But I love his enthusiasm, the adrenaline. That crowd was absolutely nuts, and he was in the heat of the moment and the emotion, and I love what he did, and just maybe the wrong choice of word.
Heat of the moment, definitely. You're pumped, you know, you're in the playoffs, and he's a great guy. I've seen interviews with him. Like, he's a stand-up guy, and I know you say some stupid things, and maybe there's some other factors behind it. But yeah, as a general manager, you really should not be saying that. But I laughed, and you know what? $25,000. He pumped up the crowd. The Raptor fans were excited. He's got his name in. I don't know. I'm still a big fan of him.
The next order of business is pumping the Raptors so they don't get too nervous, and maybe fixing that shot clock, which also was a big issue during that game. Talk about a guy who's had some issues in the past, but looks to kind of correct them, is Chad Johnson. The last we heard of him, player-wise, he had a domestic dispute, and that's a sad way to kind of tail off your career. Now, he's been removed from the game for almost 2 years now. Went into Montreal's, I guess, spring camp out in the States. Did well enough to warrant a contract from GM Jim Popp, and Jim Popp even said, look, this is not a guy we're just going to sign for the sake of signing. We think he could actually play. This is not a guy we think that's going to make it to training camp and get cut. Do you guys see in the future perhaps some 85 jerseys with Chad Johnson's name on the back rolling for Montreal this season?
He won't last long. I think maybe. Because how much is he signed for? Is it just a year?
I think it was for 2.
Is it for 2? Okay. Definitely, it was one of those, I got the word.
Publicity?
Thank you. It's a publicity
stunt,
or it's a PR move. That's the word I'm going for.
I don't think
it's a PR move.
I don't think that it is, because you're not going to bring a guy like Chad Johnson in as a PR move. You might get more flack for it than you would anything else.
PR move would be Tim Tebow.
But if it works.
Yeah,
I think Tim Tebow would be more
for sure. But then you're also getting an 11-year NFL veteran. You're getting a guy who has so much experience. He can bring maybe some of that positive stuff into the locker room. And reading the stuff that Chad Johnson had to say about what he missed and why he wanted to do this, it was way too genuine for him to be making that up.
He was a pundit.
And just saying
he was making good money sitting around talking about the NFL. Instead, he wanted to play the game of football. And you're not necessarily making good money in the NFL or CFL compared to the NFL, right? And what's really scary is if he makes that team, if he cracks that roster, imagine him lining across from S.J. Green. That's going to be hell of a tandem out there when it comes to the receiving core, plus the other guys that they do also have building with the young talent and a good young quarterback. Speaking of quarterbacks, we're going to get to Durant, Saskatchewan Roughriders, signed him long-term. Now, they wouldn't get into the specifics of the deal, but it sounds it's longer than 1 and less than the time the Riders get their new stadium by 2017, so 3 years. But it's a good extension for a guy who's 31 years old, in the prime of his career, and a guy who just came off a Grey Cup. If you had to give a rating from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, what would you give the grade for the signing of Durant, or the extension of Durant?
Oh, it'd be up there. Why not? He's the face of your franchise. He's, helped get your team the championship. Everyone, like, who doesn't like Durant in Ryderville? I don't. Is there fans? I haven't heard any.
The most popular, the saying is the most popular guy is the backup quarterback when it comes to Ryder fans. And it's true. He served a lot of flack, and he served a lot of it via Twitter. And even to this day, people are saying, why did you give up Drew Willie when you could have still, and you should have got rid of Darian Durant? Which to me is bonkers, but there's still some people out there
There's
that
not
say
many
stuff,
to
right?
go round two, though. Why would you not sign him?
And that's
up?
actually a great point, Nahreman.
Why
It's
would you
a
not?
great signing. There's not enough quarterbacks for the CFL.
Absolutely.
And you have one of the best. He won you a Grey Cup, so I think it's a great signing. I think it's like an 8, 9, maybe a 10.
And don't do what the Eskimos did, where it was Eric Tillman, all him, but, you know, Ricky Ray, where it's like, oh, you're gone. And then you're like, what? No. Like, I have faith in Mike Riley, so trust me. But at that time, you're like, what? So that's exactly, I think, what Ryder fans would do. What would you get in return?
No,
Like, if he was to go, there's no one.
You don't know if these kids are going to turn out. I know they kept Tino Sanseri, but is he a guy that could fit in that role if he wasn't there? But I think this is good for both teams. I think it's a 10 out of 10 for the Riders.
Absolutely.
Because
unless Tim Tebow's available.
quarterbacks are very hard to get in the
Pretty sure.
CFL, at least a solid one that can last you many years. So if you have one, you got to grab them for sure. Thanks a lot, guys. I do appreciate you guys. Were awesome today on the show. We appreciate that, and hopefully you guys will be coming back next time.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you for joining us on the OT edition of Gloves. You can tune in every Tuesday night at 7:30 at CITL. And then you can just check us blabbering on more so about the questions that didn't get answered on our overtime edition on our Facebook page. But we do enjoy you watching the show. And in the meantime, we will see you in 7 days.